Welcome back to the channel where fear finds a voice. Tonight, I'm bringing you 3 true horror stories. Real encounters submitted by people just like you. Each story is darker than the last, and by the end, you'll be questioning every sound you hear in the dark. Make sure you watch till the end, and let us know in the comments, which story haunted you the most. I grew up in a quiet town where people left their doors unlocked, and kids played outside till the streetlights buzzed on. My family lived in a small house on the edge of the woods. Nothing strange ever happened, until the whistling started. It was winter when I first heard it. I remember because the ground was covered in snow, and the air was so still that even our old trees didn't creak. I was 14, reading under my blanket when I heard a strange tune drift through the walls. 4 notes, software slow, too deliberate to be the wind. It was exactly 2:13 a.m. I checked. I thought maybe someone was out late, maybe drunk. But we lived far from any main road. Who would be walking near the woods in freezing temperatures? The next night I heard it again. Same time, same tune. I crept to my window and peeked through the curtain. There was nothing but the frozen yard and the forest beyond. But the whistling was louder. I wanted to believe it was just in my head. Maybe a neighbor's radio, maybe an animal. But on the 3rd night, I wasn't the only one who heard it. My mom burst into my room, pale as a sheet. "Did you hear that?" she asked, clutching her robe. We stood in silence. The whistling came again, clear, right outside. We called the police. They arrived 20 minutes later and did a sweep. Found nothing, except footprints, bare feet, human, leading from the woods to below my window, and then back again. That's when the fear really set in. Someone had been standing outside, watching. We installed lights, cameras. My dad kept a bat by the door, but none of that stopped him. Every night the same whistling, always at 2:13, always those 4 notes. One night, I had enough. I needed to see him. I waited. Blanket off, lights off, just staring out my window, heart pounding. Then, I saw him. A tall, thin figure stood at the tree line. Too far to see details, but I could tell he was barefoot, his skin ghostly pale even in the dark. He whistled, and then, he stepped forward. 1 step. 2. Closer. I ducked down, terrified. My hand shook as I reached for my phone, but the whistling stopped. When I looked back, he was gone. I didn't sleep that night. Things escalated. Animals began disappearing from nearby yards. One neighbor found their dog's leash stretched tight across the yard. No dog in sight. Another night, I woke to tapping on the window. Not from fingers, from nails. Sharp, slow, deliberate scratching. We stopped calling the police. They never found anything, and part of me started to think maybe it was something else. Something that didn't care about walls or doors. One night, I made a mistake. I opened the window. Not fully, just cracked it an inch. I don't know why. Curiosity, madness. At exactly 2:13 a.m. the tune began, but this time it was right there. Inches from my window. I froze, couldn't breathe. I turned slowly. There he was. His face was inches from the glass, smiling, eyes completely black, skin pale and stretched like he hadn't eaten in weeks. He didn't whistle. He just stared. Then he raised a long, bony finger and pointed, not at me, behind me. I spun around, expecting something, anything, but there was nothing there. When I turned back, he was gone. We moved within the week. My parents didn't even bother to sell the house. We left everything behind. It's been years since then. I live in the city now, far from woods, far from windows that look into the dark. But some nights, at exactly 2:13 a.m., I hear it, faint but clear, and I know he's still out there, still watching, still waiting. And one night, he might not stop at the window. Jake never believed in the supernatural. As a hotel manager for over 10 years, he had seen all kinds of things: angry guests, flickering lights, strange noises, but nothing that couldn't be explained by faulty wiring or human stupidity. That changed when he started working at Ridgeview Lodge, a secluded resort nestled in the mountains. The lodge was charming but old. Built in the early 1900s, it had winding hallways, creaky floors, and an atmosphere that felt permanently stuck in autumn. Jake's first week went smoothly until the head of maintenance pulled him aside and said, "Don't assign anyone to room 313. "Why?" Jake asked, confused. "Is it under renovation?" "No," the man replied. "Just don't. Trust me." Jake laughed it off. Every old place had its ghost stories, and he figured this was just lodge folklore meant to scare the new guy. He didn't think about room 313 again until the booking system made a mistake. A young couple, Aaron and Mark, had checked in late during a thunderstorm. The lobby was busy. A power surge scrambled the reservation system, and Jake, flustered, gave them keys to the only room marked available: room 313. He only realized the error the next morning. By then, Aaron and Mark were gone. At first, Jake thought they had checked out early, but their suitcases were still in the room. Their car was still in the lot, and no one had seen them leave. Room 313 was locked from the inside. Security footage showed the couple entering the room at 11:47 p.m., but never coming out. Not through the hall, not through the lobby, not even a fire exit. They simply vanished. Jake opened the door with a master key. The room was pristine, bed untouched, lights off, bathroom door open. He stepped inside, calling their names. Nothing. Then he noticed the temperature. The room was ice cold, even though the heater was on full blast. He rubbed his arms and backed out slowly, chills crawling up his spine. They searched the entire hotel, every hallway, every stairwell. No sign of the couple. Eventually, the police were called, but there were no leads, no evidence of a break-in, no explanation. The official report called it a missing persons case under investigation. But Jake couldn't shake the feeling that room 313 had something to do with it. He pulled up past records. The hotel's digital system didn't go back far, but the old logbooks, tucked away in the back office, did. Over the years, guests had been mistakenly placed in room 313 a handful of times. Each time, something went wrong. One guest claimed the walls moved during the night. Another said the windows vanished. A woman once reported that her husband walked into the bathroom and never came out. Jake started noticing other patterns. Staff refused to clean that room. Housekeepers would skip it entirely. And always, the room was cold. Jake decided to stay a night in 313 himself. He checked in alone, told no one, brought a flashlight, a notebook, and a small digital recorder. The room was quiet. For the first few hours, nothing happened. He took notes, recorded some ambient sound, turned on the heater, and waited. At exactly 2:13 a.m., he heard it, knocking. Soft, slow, from inside the walls. He called out, "Hello? Who's there?" No answer. The air grew colder. His breath became visible. He stood, flashlight in hand, and stepped toward the bathroom. The mirror was fog, even though no water had been used. And in the fog, someone, or something, had written, "Stay." Jake backed out of the bathroom. The door slammed shut behind him. He ran to the front door and grabbed the handle. It wouldn't budge. It wasn't locked. It was like it was part of the wall now. Then came the whispers. Dozens of voices. Men, women, children, all whispering at once, calling his name, begging, laughing. Jake dropped the recorder, covered his ears, and screamed. The lights flickered. then went out. He doesn't remember what happened after that. He woke up hours later, lying in the hallway outside room 313, soaking wet, his clothes dripping, but the hallway was bone dry. The door to 313 stood open, completely ordinary, but something had changed. Jake didn't speak for 2 days. When he finally did, the only thing he said was, "It doesn't want to be forgotten." He quit the lodge the following week. The owners sealed room 313 with steel plates and welded the door shut. It's no longer on the booking system. No one speaks about it. But sometimes, on stormy nights, guests in the neighboring rooms say they hear voices, begging, crying, whistling. They say the door handle rattles. And once, just once, a maid said she heard knocking from the inside. When Sophie found her first off-campus apartment, it felt like a dream. Affordable, only a short walk from university, and surprisingly roomy. But it came with one odd feature, a tall, antique mirror bolted to the bathroom wall. The landlord said it was original to the building, whatever that meant. It had a crack in the top right corner, like a lightning strike frozen in glass. She didn't think much of it, until the mirror started acting strange. It began one night after a late study session. Sophie stumbled into the bathroom, brushing her teeth while scrolling her phone. In her peripheral vision, she noticed something odd. Her reflection wasn't moving quite in sync. She paused. The reflection paused. But for a split second, it blinked, and Sophie hadn't. She stared hard into the mirror. Her heart pounded in her ears. Had she imagined it? She blinked once, twice, leaned closer. Nothing. Shaking it off, she laughed at herself. It's probably the stress, she told herself. Midterms, caffeine, and no sleep can do weird things. But it didn't stop. Over the next few days, the reflection grew, off. Sometimes it would smile just a bit too late. Other times, it moved a fraction slower than she did, like a delay on a live stream. Then, one night, it didn't smile at all. It grinned. Sophie was brushing her hair before bed. Her face was neutral, almost sleepy. But her reflection stared back at her with wide eyes and a stretched, unnatural grin. She dropped the brush. The moment it hit the floor, the mirror was normal again. She backed out of the room without turning her back to the glass. That night, she slept with the bathroom door shut and locked. The next morning, she covered the mirror with an old bedsheet, but that didn't help. That night, as she was getting ready for bed, she heard a soft thump in the bathroom. The sheet had fallen to the floor. She went to pick it up and stopped cold. There were words on the mirror, written in the condensation of her earlier sound. "Let me out." She didn't scream, couldn't. Her throat had seized up, her limbs were frozen. Instead, she backed away, step by step, until she hit her bedroom door. Slammed it shut, locked it. She barely slept. The next day, she called the landlord and demanded they remove the mirror. He showed up, reluctantly, and brought a crowbar. But when he tried to pry the mirror off, something strange happened. "It won't come off," he muttered, pressing his foot against the wall and pulling with all his strength. "It's like it's part of the wall." Eventually, they gave up. He offered to paint over it instead. Sophie agreed. Anything was better than seeing that twisted version of herself every day. For a few weeks, the paint held. The fear began to fade, until the paint cracked. It started with a small flake, barely noticeable. Then, another. Within a week, the image beneath started to show, thin lines of silver poking through white paint like veins. And then came the nightmares. Sophie began waking up gasping, drenched in sweat, hearing a voice whispering, "Let me out. Let me out." Sometimes, she'd dream of the mirror and see her reflection banging its fists against the glass, mouth stretched wide in a scream she couldn't hear. Finally, she'd had enough. She grabbed a hammer. Marching into the bathroom, she stood before the painted-over mirror. Her hand trembled, but her anger was stronger than her fear. She brought the hammer back and stopped. The mirror. It was no longer covered. The paint was gone. And her reflection? It wasn't her. The thing in the mirror stared back with eyes far too black, skin too pale, and a grin that split its face from ear to ear. Sophie couldn't move. The reflection reached out, and the surface of the glass rippled like water. She turned to run, but the door slammed shut. Lights flickered. The air turned cold, and in that moment, she knew it was coming true. She swung the hammer wildly, smashed it into the mirror, once, twice. The glass shattered across the floor, and silence fell. When the landlord arrived the next day, Sophie was sitting on the bathroom floor, surrounded by shards. Her eyes were blank. Her hands bled, and she kept whispering, I broke it, it's still in there. She moved out that same week. But the mirror? The landlord had it repaired and reinstalled. New glass, same frame. He says it's perfectly safe now, but every so often, new tenants report something strange, a reflection that doesn't quite match, a blink that comes too late, a grin that doesn't belong. They say the crack in the corner is back. If you made it this far, you're braver than most. Which story got under your skin? The whistling man? The blinking reflection? Or Room 313? Tell us in the comments below. And if you have a story of your own, something unexplainable, something terrifying, submit it to us. You might just hear it featured in the next video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell, because the next story might be about you.